I thought that because I was a widow now, I couldn't plan weddings. Like we have these limiting beliefs, like event planning, specifically wedding planning, has always been my passion. So that's what I was kind of gearing up for at the Broadmoor. And I really wanted to do that. But then my husband died. But then as I was starting my healing process, this person asked me like, Audrey, and what about weddings? And I'm like, what do you mean weddings? Like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm a widow. And he's like, why is that? I had that limitation in my mind that just doesn't match somehow. So shortly after that, I started making plans, and then I launched Luxe Love, which is about celebrations and weddings. And yes, you can still love and celebrate after loss, which is like the beauty of all of it.
Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast, the number one podcast in Colorado Springs.
Today's episode is brought to you by Home Day.
Yes, it is. So, Audrey, how have you been able to find this new redefined purpose that you've been on this journey of over the last five years? I'd say, like, so you had a purpose that you were really following previously, and now you've had to redefine that purpose. How have you done that?
That's right. Such a great question. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me, you guys. Yeah, it's been a journey. I like to call it my healing journey. It's 6 years now, 5 to 6 years. And the first step was being aware. I had no idea that I lived in survival mode before, and that I was just going, almost like mindlessly when we're like on autopilot type of thing. And it was great things I feel like that I've been doing, but I just didn't take care of myself. I needed to be aware of that and figure that out, and slowing down. That was really hard. And then working on myself and do a lot of work. And now I'm like much more present in life. I still do good things, I would love to say, but I'm present because it's important for us to actually understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm kind of like after this whole discovery of what our purpose is, what my purpose is, what is my true calling. So I've been working on that.
Yeah.
What kind of triggered this journey that set you on this path of redefining your purpose?
Yeah, the whole journey was set on by me kind of like hitting rock bottom with anxiety and just realizing how everything I was doing was survival mode, just going very fast. I always showed up professionally, very nicely and well put together. But when I was at home behind closed doors, it was always just being anxious. Nothing really felt right. Just, snapping at my loved ones and the people I love the most. Just started noticing like it's just too much. And of course, the people around me who love me were telling me that I need help. I've been going through a hard time, but I never really realized that because I always liked helping others. I still like to help others. And I always thought that when we do that, that fills our cup, which it does. But when you don't take care of yourself, then it only goes for a while until you then realize that you're actually not that good for yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So you say survival mode. Can you break down a little bit what that means?
Yeah, I call it survival mode. So unfortunately, I lost my husband who was in the military on active duty by suicide. And unfortunately, this happened in our home. And I was the one reporting to the scene. And we had a 4-month-old baby at the time. And so that was a very traumatic event. But in my mind, I didn't stop thinking about that. And maybe I need to see some professionals after that. We had a really great support system that the military put around us. But I also had a 4-month-old baby. And basically, she kept me going. And I find that I just wanted to take care of her, which then led to helping others. But then I learned that I basically didn't take care of myself. And this whole trauma that I was in because of this entire happening and potentially other things in life too, right? Everybody has trauma. And I know that this is this lately the new fancy word, but I really didn't consider the fact that maybe I need to process what had happened. I just kind of moved on and let's do everything, let's do good things, and I'm fine. And I had to realize that I wasn't. It really took me 8 years to figure that out. And so that's why I call it survival mode, because just kind of going, and not taking care of myself. So I learned that distraction and distracting yourself from an event like this is just a way of, being in that survival mode. Some people supposedly just stop doing things and they have a hard time even getting going. That's like one end of the equation. And I was the very other end where like you just go, so that your mind doesn't have to worry about this, what had happened, and you just mindlessly go, basically. So
Yeah, that's super heavy. Losing your husband, your partner, the father of your child to something so traumatic. And that's something that affects so many families in the US today. The number 22 sticks out to me because losing Paul was the same thing, right? 22 veteran suicides a day. And I think that number's actually gone up since that stat was kind of a big stat, which is the saddest thing in the world. And someone like you, there's a lot of things that we can relate to because you're in the event industry. You've Luxe Love, that's your company, right?
yes.
It's interesting because I can relate to that in the fact that when traumas happened to me when I was in the event industry, it was so easy to push things out because I was always so busy, always so like holding things together, because events are kind of like that, right? Especially, and we'll talk about this more in this episode, but there's a big event coming up this month too. But
Yes.
walk us through that, because you're right. But something like that is so big. It's like a life-stopping event. And walk us through like leading up to those moments and this like your initial reaction. I'm assuming like complete shock, like you were talking about, but there's probably more to unpack there as well.
Yeah. So we actually lived at Fort Bragg, North Carolina at the time. We just moved over there because my husband was selected for the Q course, the qualification course for special forces. He already did several deployments prior to that, a couple of those to Iraq alongside of 10th Special Forces Group, and then another one to Afghanistan. But his biggest dream has always been to get his own Green Beret. That has always been his dream ever since his teenagehood. And then the opportunity presented itself. He went to selection and he was finally be able to, sign up and go this route. So we moved over to Fort Bragg and I gave up my job here, which we can talk about it later. I was still working at the Broadmoor at the time in events.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, finally he's not going overseas. I definitely will move out there with him. And then our plan was to come back here. That course takes about 1.5 to 2 years to complete. And then the goal was to come back here. We had high hopes that he would be assigned here. And then I would just go back to events, right? And then whatever the next steps, we haven't figured it out that far ahead. But then also unexpectedly, I got pregnant. So as he was completing the course, I got pregnant, and then Emma was born. And just so my husband was able to spend 10 days with us during the course, and then be there at the baby's birth, and then spend 10 days with us. And then after that, he went into the next phase of the course, which was a 3-month-long field training.
Wow.
So he went and completed that. He came back from that. And, I didn't think too much into it because I know that this is the most physically and emotionally and psychologically hard course, or like challenging course in the military. So I'm like, he has a lot on his mind and doing all this, training. And I was preoccupied with the baby.
Right.
And literally with no signs, or at least no signs to me. I always thought that we have everything working for us. Everything is lined out really nicely. From one day to the next, as just in our home, he just walked out of one room into the other, and I've heard the gunshot, and I instantly knew. Unfortunately, we weren't new to suicide. He lost his best friend in high school to suicide. After that, after one of the deployments, he lost one of his own soldiers to suicide, which was our own experience together already discussing that, being with the family, going to the memorials. And then after that, unfortunately, a year after that, that soldier's father also died by
Gosh.
suicide. And so this was a subject between us. He explained to me everything, like he was an expert marksman. He even walked me through like how this is done and how. And then, we walk through this, like we see how this impacts families and people around us. So quite frankly, I knew a lot about the subject. We've been through it. So I always thought that we were immune to it. Like, oh, this is never going to happen to us. So and then at that moment, when I've heard that gunshot, I did not need any explanation or whatsoever. My mind just kind of like knew. But it's just still, you're just shockingly like, I basically called 911. The whole thing just plays in front of me like a movie, but it's just like a still picture. I don't remember so much around it. But then the house just quickly filled up. Like, I don't even know where all these people came from, like people from the unit, like police department. And then I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like what's going to happen with the baby? Like, are they going to take baby? Like, oh my God, I probably touched that gun. Like we will train together, do things and whatever. So like all these thoughts.
Oh man.
But then thankfully, obviously, it was very clear as to what had happened. And there's just things have happened quickly. I was there with the baby. I can honestly say that the military and everybody around us were very helpful as much as they could. Because I feel like I have no idea. Sometimes I think like, who did this? Who did that? Like, did everybody, like people come around us. And I just remember there was one person or there was one couple who I knew at Fort Bragg because all of our support system and family were elsewhere. But there was a one phone call I could make, a friend of mine, and they were also a military couple. Actually, a girl who I became friends with, and her husband is also a special forces soldier, and they were the only ones I could call. And so I just remember we ended up with them at their house and just had to make phone calls and things like that. So some of it is just blur.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's
Did you ever find out kind of why he decided to do that?
No, because you know how they have this list. I've learned so much about suicide, and I've been part of, there's actually an annual event where it's just about military suicide, the military suicide survivors seminar. They bring in the best experts, and I've been in it for 10 years. And basically, we're never going to get answers. That's like a very hard truth to sit with. But then you guys probably heard that there are these like situations where we know like, oh, maybe they had financial problems. Maybe there was like a marital issue. Maybe there was hardship with XYZ or a career issue, or they were already down this whole line.
You said he was
like,
doing like a bunch of crazy training. So
yeah. So for us, everything finally, like his dream career has lined up. We had a new baby. We had good plans. I really just can't think of like what it could have been. I remember that in that portion of the course where he came back from, and as you know, like these guys don't talk too much about deployments or anything, what had happened. But I did find out that there was this one person, like one of the contractors or people who actually helped in the course, who he had some sort of an issue with, or something didn't work, or whatever. But then that just doesn't sit so, but we never talked too much about it. I know that the military had to do like an investigation in the course and all of that. I got like a huge report, which I kind of read through, but I didn't really care because honestly, I don't think there is any way to pinpoint like one happening. And then since then, I've learned that like there is a glass that's like filling with things. So this could have been from, who knows, like, I don't want to say childhood, obviously, but gathering up the first deployment, second deployment, third deployment, other things. So there is like a last drop, but we
and
can't
then there's
say
genetics
that.
and there's brain chemistry and like, you know, like you never know. Like and you could probably spend the rest of your life trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I kind of gave up on that because honestly, just being at peace with the we're not gonna get answers. That's the better way to go. Of course, I've been dwelling on this for a long time, guilt and shame and all of that. Like, why didn't I know? How did I not ask good questions or better questions? What did I not see or what did I miss? But at the end of the day, and this took me long years to figure out that it's not my fault, or it's not like I could have done something else in that situation. And the other thing that I learned is that, they make this decision in that split moment or second, but they would change that like the next split second if they could.
Yeah.
Which just gives me some kind of another level of peace, and also understanding that in that moment he wasn't thinking about what he's leaving behind. I learned that supposedly the pain in their mind is bigger than actually understanding that there are the loved ones, and the pain is just taking over in that moment, and all they can think is that it would be just we would be better off without them, which I hate saying that, but yeah.
And if only they could get past that little moment right there, like just one step a little past, like just.
Yeah, that's exactly what they told me about Paul, and we're so blessed that they honored him in Arlington National Park and did the 21 gun salute, and we're in Washington D.C. But that's exactly what he said too. It was like, it was literally a split second type of thing, and it could have been another minute. Who knows, but you'll never know. And you got that peace with like, it was a split second kind of thing. And it's so tough. And how long has it been since you lost him?
It's coming up to 14 years in May.
Wow.
So
14 years.
Long time.
Yeah. And I know from my experience with that, there's been specific people that I know who are close to him, his mother more particularly, who's had a very, very challenging time. And it's been 9 years, since it happened. And it just takes, and no one knows how long the mourning process will take for people. And it really never kind of goes away, right? But like, you're talking about like those years after the fact that were just pure survival, maybe you don't even remember some of those, brief moments after the fact, those months after the fact, just because you're just trying to survive.
Yes. And then what I learned is that also it's I think we're making improvements in this direction, but it's such a taboo still to talk about this, that I learned that people literally didn't dare to ask me questions. So until I opened up this subject, people would not ask me questions because they didn't dare to. And that's just so crazy, because I didn't think that. I was always just like, okay, let's just not talk about this. But then the let's not talk about this, one of the consequences was that I just mainly talk about myself, I would also not talk about him. So we often just make this entire how they died such an important, how to say this, we focus on that so much, and then we don't focus about their life or all the good things that they have done. And that's me too. I'm not judging anyone, because it's me too, but it's easy to get stuck with this. And I had so much anger, and I'm like ready to admit that I had so much anger, and then that goes back and forth, and just resentment, and why did you do this? How you like that victim mode type of thing. It's like a lot of different emotions. And I just could never really, up until now that I've been healing myself, is that where I went back to that, what happened prior. And he actually did this deployment and that deployment and some important, some important things in his life. And he was this and this person. And then now I'm at the process where my daughter, who is now 14, she's just now hearing about this. So again, there's a lot of guilt involved, but I was just ready now to do this, and it's better doing it like later than never. But I just kind of could turn this into that, happy memories phase where I talk about him. This is where we went. This is what we did. And so my daughter can actually find out more about who he was. Not that she's never heard about that, but nobody would open up too much about this in the family just because of what had happened.
For sure. Yeah.
You definitely got to give yourself some grace because you were mourning too. And so the fact that you didn't handle that maybe best with your daughter or whomever after the fact, you were mourning, you know, you were left with your daughter and you were just trying to figure it out. And you got to give yourself some grace for that first and foremost. And then the second thing, you're 100% right about like honoring the memory. Like one of my favorite things to do about Paul or whomever I've ever lost is always talking about like a memory in which like I'll talk to Andrew about a memory of like I want him to be there in the memory. Yeah. And so like he has his own version of my grandpa or Paul or people that I've lost because I've told them so much about them and they're like, oh, like they feel like they know that person. That's one of the coolest things. Like people that I've met after the fact, they feel like they know Paul. And that's cool. They're like, oh, that's a Paul joke. Cause there's different things I still tell jokes about. He was a funny guy that he used to tell. And like those things keep that kind of memory alive and some of the great things about that person that you lost that helps me deal with that ongoing grieving process with my loved one, you know?
I love that you do that. And thanks for sharing that. And if I may share that also, if anybody's listening and if you ever, if people who meet like a surviving family member or families who have lost someone, a lot of times people, I just know this because they tell us they have a hard time. Like, what do I tell this person? Or, oh, I'm just so scared to say the wrong thing or whatnot. If you just want to ask about their loved ones, like how were they like? Tell me a funny story or what did they do or what's your best memory? Like you will see that the face of that person will light up because we love sharing those moments. Or I shall say now I realize that that's the great thing to do. But even on Memorial Day, I was talking with a group of people this last Memorial Day and I was telling them like, okay, like we still celebrate. It doesn't have to be like a very sad day, but like, yeah, while you're drinking your beer or have your good food, just tell a story about a person that died or made that ultimate sacrifice. So like people appreciate that to know like what to say or what to do. I learned. So.
No, that's thank you so much for sharing. And one thing I can only add to that is like whenever I'm around his family members and stuff like that, it's the strangest thing, but I feel like I get a piece of him back because they have he has their mannerisms like his mother. And it's like, oh my gosh, I get a piece of him back. And so I don't know if you have any instance like that with anybody from his family or anything like that. We're like, oh my gosh, you're so much like him.
Maybe
my
your daughter
own
too.
child. Oh, that's just not even like, yeah. And it came to a point where, I mean, she doesn't like that, or I shouldn't speak for her. This is just my words, but
she's 14 too.
Yes, but a lot of times it's just that too much of a comparison, and she wants to be her own person, which obviously she is. But ever since she was a baby, and if I would show you a picture right now, the two of them, like the face, the eyes, it's all the same, and the mannerisms. Now that she's older, I can totally tell much more than in earlier years. And I tell her like, oh my gosh, that was like a daddy face and she likes those.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors. Reveal Med Spa. Look and feel your best at Reveal Med Spas. With personalized plans that deliver real results, radiant skin, restored confidence, and natural rejuvenation.
At Reveal Med Spa, we see you. More than just aesthetic and wellness treatments, we provide a safe, judgment-free space where you feel valued, heard, and supported.
Visit revealmedspas.com.
I think it is literally just that too. We'll just double check. Book your next session at revealmedspas.com. That's revealmedspas.com.
Home Day. Buying a home shouldn't be overwhelming. Home Day empowers you to save on your mortgage by putting you in control of the process. Lower your cost and take the next step towards home ownership with ease. Visit gethomeday.com today.
Fast Signs. From banners to vehicle wraps, Fast Signs delivers custom visual solutions to help your business stand out. Their team ensures your message is clear, bold, and effective. Get your signage needed handled at fastsigns.com. That's fastsigns.com. Epic Eyewear. Stylish, affordable, and designed for adventure, Epic Eyewear has the sunglass and eyewear you need to see life more clearly. From the mountains to the beach, protect your eyes with high-quality frames and lenses. Check out their collection at epiceyewear.com. And by the way, Andrew, we do have a special discount, COS BP 15 for 15% off, I believe.
Cars Helping Charities. Turn your unused cars into a meaningful contribution with Cars Helping Charities. They make it easy to donate your vehicle to support local causes. One of the local charities that we like to support on behalf of Cars Helping Charities, actually, and part of their sponsorship is Mattersville. and check them out too.
They're awesome. They are a tiny house community for veterans suffering with PTSD. They have a property out in Yoder, Colorado, and then they also have one in Sedalia, Colorado as well.
Donate today and make a difference. Visit carshelpingcharities.org. That's carshelpingcharities.org. Dream Accounting Solutions. Take the stress out of managing your books with Dream Accounting Solutions. They provide reliable expert accounting services tailored to small businesses. Simplify your finances at dreamaccountingsolutions.com. That's dreamaccountingsolutions.com.
Exponential Impact. Exponential Impact is driving innovation and entrepreneurial success in Colorado Springs. Supporting startups with mentorship, funding, and community resources, they help businesses grow and thrive. Learn more about their impact at exponentialimpact.com. That's exponentialimpact.com.
And now let's get back to the show.
Well, I mean, amidst all this, I mean, it's part of your story, and we're going to get into like why this is so important, because there's a very special gala coming up as well, and there's things you're associated with. But like in the midst of all this, the past 20 years, you have done some of the most amazing events, ranging from like the Broadmoor. We're reading up about you like at places in Hungary that you're doing at an opera house. Talk to us about some of that.
Budapest.
Budapest. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. So I studied in Budapest, and my college was business based, but my major was hospitality and tourism, and you need to do different internships. And I ended up with this one internship where I was with the catering company who did events at the State Opera House. And you probably know that in Europe, we have these very fancy, very old buildings, not just the opera house, but it's just like kind of crazy to get into those buildings, and how like the logistics around how do you bring in the food, and then you're serving in these different boxes and suites and this ballroom and that ballroom. So it ended up being actually my thesis work for my degree, that State Opera Ball, which was, at the time, I think they still have it right now. I don't know, so I shouldn't, please don't fact check that. I don't know if they still have the State Opera Ball in Budapest, but at the time they did, and that was like the fanciest event of the year. And then so we did the whole like 5-course menu with wine pairings and bringing it in there. And so I wrote my work about that. So, and then which brings us to how I came here, because another internship opportunity at the time, I wanted to improve my English because my degree also required a couple of different language exams. And at the time I was fluent in German already. That was my first foreign language. And so I needed to improve my English. That was my second language that I chose to do the exams with. And so there was this internship opportunity here in Colorado Springs at the Broadmoor, which is still ongoing, that they recruit students in the field, actually from all over the world, to come to the Broadmoor and do internships. So I was one of them 22 years ago.
Wow.
That's kind of crazy, but that's how I ended up here. So met my husband at the Broadmoor at an event. Of course, I like to say that the rest is history. And then so after we got married, he obviously like was advancing with his military career and the deployments. And then I was advancing my career at the Broadmoor. I ended up in the conferences office there doing events. The last few years I was there. And then basically what stopped that is when we moved to North Carolina
Fort Bragg.
for his assignment. And then so when I moved back, I chose to move back here to the Springs after that, and because this was more like family. Some of my family, of course, would have expected that I moved back to Hungary, but that didn't seem right, because I knew that the whole idea of suicide or the support there would be about zero about the subject. Nobody talks about that. My daughter wouldn't know who her dad was or what the military was. So I chose to stay here. And then the support system was amazing. But I started wanting to do more events. It's just shifted over to the surviving military field. So I started getting involved with Gold Star Wives of America, where we started a new chapter here. And then I started doing some events for them. And then I learned about Angels of America's Fallen, where I met the founders, Joe and Shelley. This is about almost 11 years back now. And they were a new organization at the time. And they were just telling me that I can sign up my daughter for the program, which I eventually did. And then I started planning their annual fundraiser gala, which is called the Angel Gala, and it's coming to its 10th anniversary within a month, less than a month.
Yeah.
So that has been my passion project for the past 10 years now.
Just so awesome. And again, it's April 26th, Saturday, right?
Yes, and it's at the new Hotel Polaris.
That's cool.
But good luck getting tickets.
Yeah,
I
you almost sold
know.
out.
Sounds like we're filling up that room. So I think we can fit up to 700
Mhm.
guests.
Wow.
which
Is it growing each year?
It's been growing. It's been pretty steady around that 600. We went up to 650. It's never been up to 700. So the
Ooh.
first event we did started out with like 100 guests, and then we grew it. We pretty much started on, I like to say, on the grassroots level. It was literally the founders, Joe and Shelley, and myself, Garrett, who was at the time communications and all of the just a lot of creative minds behind the creative mind behind the organization. So like the four of us and a few volunteers, but we basically started this on the grassroots level, gathering sponsors and guests and people, and then it grew to like 200 over 200 the second year, and then from there it took
Mhm.
off.
And then COVID at 0.
Well, we were so lucky, and thanks for mentioning that. We were probably one of the few organizations where we did not miss an annual event because of COVID, because our event happened in February that year, right before everything shut down. And the
Dang.
following
Wow.
year, we pushed back that February date to like May, but we were ready for like, oh, we're not going to have an
For sure,
event.
yeah.
They literally just opened up the option to have more than 100 people. It was like first you could have 50, then 100. Sure enough, we were able to push back the event to May that year. So it was over a year later, but then we
Yeah.
still had an annual event. So we
Wow.
haven't missed one.
That's lucky.
Yeah.
You
It was
are,
very
yeah,
lucky.
Very blessed. So unpack the event for us a little bit more, because it's definitely something interesting to me. And I definitely have many people who would probably love to go or be a part of or sponsor that type of event. I mean, it sounds like a really good gala, but yeah, tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's really special, especially because my daughter is supported in the program, which is like personally like a huge drive for me, how I know the impact of the organization. So if you haven't heard of Angels of America's Fallen, they support children of the fallen, military, police, and firefighters. And basically, it's a long-term program. Once a child gets into the program, they're in it until adulthood. So the age of 18, 19, basically at the end of high school. And what they do is they help the children with healthy activities, whether it's a sport or music or just following a hobby or some sort of passion. And they set up these activities that has a mentor or a coach. But the idea is that the children will get involved with that person, and so they can follow their own calling, and they're building they still honor the fallen, but then it's about like what's possible, and then so that these children can write their own story of success through these different activities. And then you can switch between the activities. Like my daughter started out with dance lessons, and that went on for like 7 years. I became a dance mom. She was in competition dancing, which was a whole new learning experience. But then she switched, and then she got into volleyball in middle school and horseback riding,
Oh, cool.
cooking, baking. So basically the idea is that the children can try out whatever they want to, and they can switch, figure out what you like to do, as long as that activity involves like a mentor or a coach or a person that they connect with. And so it's really awesome because, again, it's like the long-term impact and the connections we make. I like to say it's much more than just, oh, let's go to a soccer practice or a swim lesson or whatnot.
That's
So
really cool. Have you
it's
ever
amazing.
heard of Fallen Hero Tattoo? Have you heard of those folks?
I think so. Aren't they in Old Colorado City?
I
or-
think- yeah.
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 Yeah, they were a big part of my 2019. I used to do tiny house festivals, and so they were a part of that, and like a big benefit of like they did on-site tattoos at this festival at PPIR.
No way, okay.
It was so cool, and there's a lot of people that actually my niece got her first tattoo there. I got super mad because I was like, this is not how it's supposed to work, right? Like I'm doing this tattoo thing, and then my niece gets her first tattoo without her uncle's permission. But they donated a good portion to some nonprofits that were there supporting military.
They do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they were
like-
Yeah.
amazing. And it was just so cool to, have something like that. And they were so amazing. And it's just so cool seeing a lot of these vendors, sponsors, organizations kind of come around people who have been,
Yes.
have suffered from such a tragic loss.
Yeah.
And they just like make that their mission to support them. And it's like, you guys are just, it's really cool to see those folks supported.
Can I add
Yes.
another iconic thing that goes along with the theme of remembering the fallen? Kind of. Did you guys know? You guys know the street Mark Dabbling, right?
Mhm.
There's a
Yeah.
street over there.
Yeah.
Mark Dabbling actually was a police officer who died on duty in the 80s, actually,
I
and
did not
the city
know that.
put a
Yeah.
memorial for him. Like that street, like everyone knows Mark Dabbling. Like, I mean, it was one of the first streets because it's a interesting last name. But like, yeah, just to add a little side note onto what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mark Dabbling was a guy who was a police officer who died on duty. Like I don't know exactly how or why, but I know because I was at the police department doing a video once and I saw like them like showing all the people. Yeah. Just wanted to throw that in there.
I love that. Thanks for I did not know about
Yeah.
that particular story, but recently I've seen like roads named after some of these fallen soldiers too, and it's just really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with the I mean, I'm sure with all the folks involved in this organization, you've probably have met other families who have suffered very similar situations. As you talk a little bit more about that and connecting with them, and I'm sure there's like some great connections that you've gotten from, this nonprofit.
Yes, I definitely have, and not even just through this organization, but other ones too. I was back in the day involved with several projects at once, not just Angels of America's Fallen. And yes, it's after a while you realize that you know all these stories, right? And they're like the sad part of like how they died or what happened to them, but then also hearing those stories of who they were or like meeting family members, that's that other switch in my mind right now that always like the celebration of it, right? I find that celebration is my new word, which is not only with the weddings that I do now and these celebration events, but even when we talk about these fallen service members or just anybody that, yes, it's really sad how we lose them, but then celebrating their lives or like their families or what legacy they have left behind. And it just puts it in such a different perspective. And that's what the Angel Gala is about specifically, because so it's a celebration event for the families and the children who are in the program, in the Angels program. But at the same time, it's their annual fundraiser. So that's how the idea
Cool.
came about, to raise more funds. But after a few years doing it, we came up with the idea of like the children. So actually the children were even at the first gala. So the kids perform in their given activities. So if we have a musician, they can play their instrument, or if somebody's a dancer, like my daughter, they do a little dance number. Or we even had a young girl who was doing some sort of precision shooting at one of the galas. And
Oh,
don't
that's
ask
cool.
me how that was set up. It was like a laser, not like real, like weapons in there, but like a laser type of shooting. So it's hard to bring some of those like activities into a ballroom, but we've been doing a really good job, like to have a variety of them. And then also the people who share stories, it's from the community. So it's just really showing the impact, because one of the things is that they're supporting over 500 children now nationwide in this program.
Wow.
But as people find out about it, the need is so great that they have 700 families on the wait list. So
Wow.
it's just the funds are not enough to accommodate everybody. And so the organization has been growing steadily and more families get into the program. But there are just unfortunately so many families in this situation that could use the help with the program. So
Yeah. There's so much like love and support and just like excitement in a lot of ways that are generated from galas like this. We were just at one that
yes.
back in November, December time for our friends at Mattersville.
Another
And
veteran
yeah, we
organization.
actually introduced Drew to her. Yes.
Yes. Oh, I love that connection. So
Yeah, Drew's awesome.
We'll talk about this later, but like I can't wait to go out there and check out. Like,
It's so great, especially with the wolf dogs.
yes.
But you're right. It generates like some level of like love and support and passion towards something that's like a collective mission. And like we were at the gala and my girlfriend was there and she didn't realize that her cousin was like part of the catering team
Yeah.
from Slice 420. Shout out to Slice 420, by the way. And like they were just so amazing. They were supporting this little gala and it was just really cool. And then like we were like doing what was it, the donations and everything for the gala, and they were like one of the first people that like rose. They were just the catering staff, and they're like, we want to support this, so they were like raising their hands to support this mission. They're working, and I just thought that was like so cool, like what can happen in these special types of benefit dinners and things of that nature as well.
Yeah, and also just for the audience, these organizations, they a lot of them are founded by people who really truly care about their purpose, and they have to sacrifice so much. And so like go and support these organizations if you feel compelled to. Yeah. That Mattersville is one of them. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice there. I'm sure like all the love and support, blood, sweat, and tears that you give into putting this wonderful event on, like it needs to be shared. It needs to be cherished. Like all the hard work you and the founders have done to this thing. Like it's just, I mean, we would love to be there. I know you guys are almost sold out. That's, I mean, plus we like Hotel Polaris. We were just there in December, grabbing
for the podcast dinner.
Doing like a holiday thing for the podcast.
Yeah.
And we went there and it was just like such an awesome spot. We went there when it was like super cold out and dark, and it was still such a fun time to hang out.
Good vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, and adding on to what you just said, Marcus, it's yes, we all put in a lot of work, but it couldn't be done with like everybody's effort, whether it's the volunteers, because like I think some of these events or most of these events could not actually happen the day off without the amazing volunteers who come on board. Most of these events have a silent auction. Ours is pretty big. All those people who just donate for like a gift basket or the silent auction itself, then the sponsors, then the in-kind donors, like photographers coming in and they donate their time and so many others. So like, I always want to make sure that all these people who contribute, they please know that you matter. And I see that. It's just everybody's effort brings this together. So it's amazing. And then all those people, what I'm learning now is because I pay more attention instead of just go, how much all these people just impacted me and my healing journey and my story and just the ripple effects around all these things, like looking back and how some of these people became very important in my own life or my daughter's life or just somebody I know. It's just so amazing to reflect on that. And I used to not take the time or care to do that. But now as I do that, it's just so meaningful. There's always so much more behind all these efforts and connections.
Yeah, I think that's part of the actual story that you're mentioning in the beginning where you're saying I was just surviving. But in a lot of ways, you were healing through the efforts of this gala and all the years that you've put towards it. And your daughter, has she been there since year one when she was 4 years old?
Yes.
Or? Wow.
Yes. She sang the national anthem a couple of times and she performed like dance a few times. So year 5 was that really breakthrough for me in my own healing because they also do these little story videos about the families that are performing or the child, I should say, which is really cool. It's kind of like that America's Got Talent type of frame where like they show the little video and then the child comes out and it's like this cool performance. And I just love it because the kids really like that. Like they are empowered after that.
For sure.
So my daughter was doing her dance, which was specifically put together with her dance instructor to honor her dad. And that was the year for me when I started my own healing journey and that little video. And so I actually put that video out after that on social media. And that's when that whole conversation started. A lot of people like, oh, wow, I don't know that happened. And only a few things were mentioned in that because it was about my daughter and her involvement with the organization. But that's when a lot of people, like I had to open up that conversation and people finally started reaching out to me like, oh, what happened? Like, is it okay? Like, it was really nice. And all of those connections and questions started helping with my processing. Of course, it took some professional work too. And I'm not saying that this just happened overnight, but it just helped finally having the connection with the people who also loved my husband and cared about him. And it basically just hasn't been talked about.
A lot of people you probably newly met that didn't even know about it, probably.
Yes.
I can imagine.
And so it was just really nice. And now this was year 5. And since then, now we're at year 10. And there is so much more healing that had happened for me and so many dots connected and how the organization has helped my healing. They also have a program, if I may mention, which is fairly new. It's called the Angels Voices, where moms in the program, like myself, we went through a lot of training program where we share our stories. And basically the idea is that we could go to different events, or if, let's say, a company would like to know more about Angels of America's Fallen because they would like to have a new nonprofit they want to support or anything like that, we can basically just go and share our story and share the impact. And basically, this is just more meaningful and impactful in a way because us parents of kids in the program get to share like how it impacted us. And so that program alone helped me so much too, because then there again, I had to talk about like a little bit more of what had happened. And that was 2 summers ago. And so like all these steps, and then basically for this year, and then they asked me to be the keynote speaker, which is a huge blessing, a huge honor. But basically it completes this milestone in my healing, I feel like, where I'm just going to be able to honor my husband in a way I haven't done before, I feel like, and just celebrate his life and his accomplishments other than just, like knowing the facts about how he died. So that's just super important. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And at the same time, sharing with, all the people in the room, like how impactful the organization is in my life, my family's life, and all of these families' lives.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you've done a really good job of just detailing like the effects, the moment of the effects after, and how you've been able to kind of heal. Like it sounds like there's been a lot of processing that's taken place over the past
yeah.
14 years. And now it's like finally able to come out in like a therapeutic way, which is your way of just telling the story, which so many people are going to be relate to. Unfortunately, a lot of people will be able to relate to and latch onto.
Yes.
And
That's the
there's a
sad
thing
part.
with trauma bonding, right? Like that's a thing, right? Like we had a little bit of a trauma bond there with like, I lost someone I loved so dearly and you lost your husband. Like, it's just like, it's so unfortunate, but there is something there with people who have gone through things similar to you. There's a sense of comfort that they've been through something similar to you, I would assume, through the people you're telling these stories to.
Yes. And I also realize when others share their stories, how much it helps me and impacts me. So just hoping to kind of pay it forward that way too. Like maybe, if somebody just hears this message or the story and they can, even just take a step, like look at your own life. Like, have you actually helped yourself, or would you need some help, or are you able to ask for or willing to ask for help? Because one of the hardest pieces were that I always thought that I can just take care of everything and I don't need help. And then just learning to accept help. It sounds so silly and so easy, but that's actually not an easy step for a lot of us, just to accept the help. And I feel like by the time I was aware and I was ready to ask for help, all these people were already around me through all these different things I've been doing. So I just had to, really reach out and ask for the help. And it was already there because the support is out there. It's just sometimes number one, we don't realize we need the help, or don't want to accept the fact that we need the help, or don't want to ask for it. So again, it sounds so simple. I'm like, how did I not know this back then? Well, I just didn't. So
Yeah.
take care of yourself before you take care of others. It's been great, and I would not take back any of the hours I had put in these helping others and the organizations. It's just that I should have also taken care of myself first.
Yes.
But now I get to do both, which is even better.
Yeah. For folks at home and this, I don't know, there's a lot of people actually I know who don't know this term. When you're saying the name of the organization, Angels of America's Fallen, it comes from the term of fallen angels. And a lot of people don't know what that term specifically means in regards to, military folks and things of that nature. Can you unpack that term?
Fallen heroes?
Fallen angels is,
fallen
I think,
angels?
the
Okay.
specific term. And and I could be wrong, but I think it's just mostly like, folks in the military or first responders who have been lost,
so
right?
I actually, this comes up a lot. Thank you for that question. I'm going to have a conversation with Joe. If Joe, you're watching this later, we'll have this conversation, like how they came up with the name. Because so many people just recently, to me, it was always like just natural, like Angels of America's Fallen. But like, what is this? So my understanding is that the angels in this term, the angels are the kids who they are leaving behind. And then of America's Fallen, obviously, like the police officers, the military service members, firefighters, but the angels, the kids are referred to as the angels. And then they basically just use this term in everything. So there is the angels' voices, which is, my understanding is that we are the voices of these angels who are left behind, meaning the children. And then so there are angel wings chapters. So like everything is around the angels, which we all understand that that's supposed to be like this very positive and the guardians. But then in my opinion, and again, like looking forward to this conversation with Joe, it's all about these children who are being referred to as the angels
that makes sense.
Who are left behind. And then all of us are the guardians and then the helpers and taking care of these angels. So
because when you say fallen angels, it makes me think Lucifer, because Lucifer was a fallen angel.
That's true. There was a book I read
Yeah.
that was about military veterans, specifically in Vietnam, and they used that term. So maybe I wasn't correct. I think that's a lot better of a definition. It makes a lot more sense, to be honest with you.
But thank you. You guys are like the third conversation around this just in this past month. And I'm like, oh, I never really analyzed this myself. So that this is the way how it makes sense to me, because for sure, in this, the name and in their terminology, the angels are the children who are in the program. And then America's fallen, and these are their angels, so to say, their children. And then so we are taking care of them. It makes sense to me. We'll find out.
Makes
So
perfect sense,
I'll report back to you guys.
Come on, Joe. Let's do it.
Well, that's so amazing. I'm so excited about this event. This is, perfect for the 10-year. What an honor for you to keynote this.
It's just such an honor and such an opportunity, and just seeing how everything unfolded, even the timing of all of this in my own healing. Yeah.
We'd like to take a quick break and thank our sponsors.
Planet Duct. Planet Duct is the #1 choice for professional air duct cleaning in Colorado Springs and Southern Colorado. With state-of-the-art equipment and top-tier service, they make sure the air in your home or business is clean and allergen-free. Breathe easier with Planet Duct. Learn more at planetduct.com.
Awesome Home Services. Awesome Home Services delivers top-notch HVAC solutions for your home. Whether you need heating, cooling, or system maintenance, they ensure your comfort year-round. Visit awesomeservice.com for your HVAC needs. That's awesomeservice.com.
Mike Schoening Legal Shield.
So you're out here living your best life and suddenly legal drama slides in your DMs. Major L, right?
Bruh, hard pass. That's why you need Legal Shield. They're like the GOAT of legal protection.
Business contracts covered. Traffic tickets, no sweat. 3 a.m. legal emergency, they're up say less.
Hit up the link and get Legal Shield now.
Protect your energy, secure the bag, and stay drama-free, period.
Visit mscheoeng.legalshieldassociate.com.
Proud American Electrical and Solar.
Give Proud American Electrical and Solar a call today for all your electrical and solar needs. They are locally owned and operated business right here in Colorado Springs. If you're looking for information on solar, this is the company you will want to call. Check out their website at proudamericansolar.com. Use promo code COS Business for a 5% discount today.
Franchise Succeed. Looking to invest in a franchise or grow your current one? The experts at Franchise Succeed help you navigate the world of franchising with proven strategies and guidance. Whether you're a first-time owner or scaling a franchise empire, they're here to help. Visit franchisesucceed.com to get started. That's franchisesucceed.com. Pinnacle Advanced Primary Care.
Pinnacle Advanced Primary Care offers affordable, accessible healthcare with a focus on you. They provide exceptional primary care without the hassle of insurance barriers. Experience a patient-centered approach. Learn more at pinnacleapc.com.
Celebrity DJ. Make your next event unforgettable with Celebrity DJ. From weddings to corporate events, they deliver energy and entertainment that keeps the party going. Visit celebrity-dj.com to book your DJ today.
Storybook Destinations. Turn your dream vacation into a reality with Storybook Destinations. They specialize in creating custom travel experiences from Disney vacations to bucket list adventures. Start planning today at StorybookDestinations.com. That's StorybookDestinations.com.
And now let's get back to the show.
I could tell you side note, and Andrew was there for this, but every year for my festivals when I did them, I used to give out the Paul Wedgwood Award, which was an award given to a veteran in the community that represented character strength in the community. And every year I would tell a little blurb about Paul, who he was, what he meant to me, and then the award, and I'd give out the award and the person would know in the crowd who it was. And it was a really cool, special thing. When we did the gala this year, it was indoors, it was more intimate. And I've had a couple years of telling my story. at that point, I had 6 years of telling my story about Paul and giving that word out. That was the sixth time I've given that word out. It was way more intimate. I think it's because I've been able to like have the therapy of telling the story, and now it just comes out. And it was just a lot easier to kind of communicate exactly how this award really makes me feel. And it, again, my own healing journey of like what that means to me, telling my story, telling who he was, and then giving that. And then Andrew can attest to this, but like the veterans that get it, they're like beside them. It's the biggest award of that gala, which is like such an honor in its own right. It's just so cool to see people honored to have my best name tied to them.
He's got his own enclosure at Mattersville.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just the talking about it portion is so important also, which then comes along with the way of, you know, us being educated, also educating others, because then again, especially with like the deaths by suicide, it's just so important that we have to talk about it. We have to learn more about the subject and still acknowledge, especially these fallen heroes, because they have like all these honorable service in their field of like, whether it's military or police or firefighters or whichever field they're in. And that's what's the important piece. But also because then us talking about it, it helps with the prevention process, I believe. And then the more people know about it, talk about it, get comfortable about it, because sometimes it's just that one phone call to that person who didn't ask for help, or we just never know how many times we might be actually preventing another case or just saving someone's lives. And I know that that's like some deep thoughts, but it's true. So, and then unfortunately, what I learned is also that us who are affected by suicide are much more prone to, back in the day, I thought that, oh, if you knew about somebody who died by suicide, now you know it's not going to affect you in the future. That's wrong. It's completely the opposite. Like me, my child, like Clint's family, we are more prone to suicide because of having been affected by suicide, which at first didn't make sense to me, but it's actually true. And so the more people can actually like talk about this and educate and just ask that person, are you okay? Even just that one phone call, instead of, unfortunately, I still see this, especially around kids and that teenage, very vulnerable community, that they make joking comments about this sometimes. That's just like not okay anymore. And we have to like take it seriously. And again, I'm like not judging anyone on this because, we all have been in certain situations, but once it happens to you, then your perspective changes. And I think it's just our job to like educate and just talk to people about it so that more and more people can actually realize how important it is to put in that nice word or make that phone call or ask that person if they're okay, because you just never know. So
yeah, that's so true. Did you have you met Dr. Travis Hearn? He's in the community too. He owns Titanium Consulting Group. Have you ever met? Do you know who we're talking about? I haven't met
him, but I just saw him on you guys' episode. Nice. So I was like, wow, this is also someone. Yeah.
He's a solid guy, and I mean, he talks about his own journey with that, and obviously he was a Marine, so he dealt with those situations from his own brothers in arms, and it's just. You're exactly right. I mean, he could probably take that same perspective of like having that moment as well. And even it's just the saddest thing ever. But during Paul's funeral at Arlington, it was our second funeral because we had one and then he got honored in Arlington, which was so cool. Like a year later, his best friend in the Marines took his life that weekend.
Yeah, that's true.
And we were wondering where he was that weekend. And then we found out. And it's just like, oh man, it's so
contagious
heavy.
In a lot of ways.
It's so heavy.
And then again, this is just my opinion, and I'm obviously not a professional, but it's always those people who seem to be doing well in most cases, and they're the nicest, help everybody, put out that like, I'm okay and let's help, let's do this. Like that's who my husband was. He was always the one having the extra equipment for everybody, the this and that, but we just never know what goes on in a person's mind. So
those are the ones you got to check on, right? Like those are the ones because no one's checking on them because they think they're all right. They have it all seemingly put together. That was Paul. Like he was actually on an up where he was getting help. He was looking into, actually he was already utilizing the military services for therapy and all these different things. And you're right. It's the ones that we think that have it all figured out or seem to be helping others that is seamlessly pouring in an empty cup to others, right?
Yes. And I kind of, and I experienced that from my own life too, because I always wanted to be that person like, oh, don't put that label on me. Like how would I have PTSD? Leave that for the soldiers. I would go around saying things like that when somebody dared to say that I need help, because there were people who said that I need help. Oh, I'm okay. How about that family? Did you hear about that case? And oh, they should go. They need help. I'm okay. I'm okay. But then sometimes we don't even know that we are not okay because we think so. So now those are the harder cases, because then we don't essentially know that we should reach out or ask. But I guess I'm just saying that there is sometimes much more behind that, like happy face or hardworking or helping others. It's just a process, because we all have to realize that sometimes we're not okay. And then also just realizing that it's okay to say that we're not okay and ask for help. Like that's not a weakness. I had to learn that too. So just all these, generic truths that until you kind of go through it, you don't realize sometimes that, oh, it sounds so easy or so simple, but it's not if you're in it.
There's just something to be said about a mother's love, especially a single mother's love. I don't know how else to describe it besides that. Like mother bear, they have an ability to be stronger than the strongest people I've ever met are usually single mothers, for whatever reason. And it's because they have to protect, their kids, and they're not able to, protect themselves really in that moment, because they were just making sure that their kids or whomever are okay in that moment. And then it hits them later. My mom was a single mom, very similar situation. I know so many people who had to deal with those things. Like my mom always used to say growing up, I have to schedule my breakdown. Like and it's always further out. Like it was never scheduled. It was just always pushed and pushed and pushed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think there's something beautiful about it as well, because a mother's love is just so powerful. And I mean, so selfless. You see it in the wild. You see it with like literally mother bears. Like to go charge a freaking car because, they're driving on the side of the road and there's cubs right there or something. Like it's a special thing in human nature, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And I'm so glad that we have that, right? It's almost like that motherly instinct, or however we want to call it. But also I just learned that, oh, I can take care of everything type of thing. There's just, we want to do that and we have that instinctively, but it's just, it just doesn't work after a while, and just taking the help. I'm so grateful for all the people who have been around us, because the support has always been there, but I was just the one who thought that I don't need it. So again, it's just, I want to emphasize that we always had such a great experience with the support, whether it's the other families or the organizations and this and that. But it's just, we have to take a moment, us mothers too, that yes, we can do it, but why not to ask for some help? We help so many others, and other than just our children, I feel like, and it's just take the help to make it better for everybody. Because ever since I took the help for myself, I was much better able to take care of my child, which I don't even want to get into this too much now. But then when I was getting better and on my healing journey is, of course, when my teenager then started struggling and having a harder time, and I could show up in a much better version of myself instead of just panicking, for lack of better words, like my old self would have done. So it just really shows that we need to take these steps so that we can be there in that better version, or even stronger than just that instinctive, like, yes, let's take care of it. Let's take care of everything. So, yeah.
How does it feel to put yourself, first in a lot of ways, and just do that self-care for once in your life?
It's been really hard. It's been a process for years, and it's still hard sometimes. Like, oh, why did you do that? Or who do you think, that those voices in my head. But then now it's much easier for me to kind of overcome that yes, you need to do that, because then you can better take care of, like, not just my daughter, but like the job or others or whatnot. So like that slowing down is very important, and reflecting and just taking a minute, because we make ourselves busy. We have so many excuses, even when something is not necessarily to be done right now. I used to be the person who always felt like everything needs to be done first before I can do something for myself. But then you never catch up unless you very like intentionally make time for those things. So I've been learning that, and it's just so important. Whether it's like for the moms or fathers or single people, anybody, all of us. So because then the results are just much better.
Well, that's where it starts too. I mean, the mental health aspect of it. I mean,
Yeah.
like when it comes down to the ultimate decision that someone makes of suicide, their mental health was suffering, and
Yeah.
it's not just men either. My own grandmother killed herself when my dad was 9, actually. And I was just thinking about that. We always like when we think of suicide, we think of men, but it's also women too, you know.
Yeah, that's
And
very
it's
true,
it's very
actually.
it's like that had repercussions. Like I never knew her, never got to meet her because he was 9. But like that trickles down all the way down. Like he died of a heroin overdose in his 40s or 50s actually, and like you can only imagine like the issues that were never resolved because we didn't talk about that stuff. You know, like it's important.
And I think they're not talking about it, and that's the point, because totally different subject, but all of these like addictions or drinking or whether drugs or whatnot, like it's always, there's always a root cause to that. Supposedly always some sort of a trauma as to why that happens or how that happens. And if we would be able to address those questions, like why is this, or but instead of just potentially like judging the situation or trying to take care of the symptoms, right? Again, I'm not a professional, I'm not advising anybody. Everybody can do their own research, but it's just important to realize how there's always something underneath that. And it's always some sort of a tragic happening or some sort of a traumatic happening, and there's figuring out those. I'm a huge follower of Dr. Mate Gabor. I'm sure
Oh,
you
yeah.
all have heard about him. He's actually from Hungary. I'm always
Yeah,
so proud to say
I thought
that.
his
He
accent
lives-
sounded like yours. Yeah.
Yes. And so the way how he explains it, and I don't even know, he's in his 70s, 80s. I don't want to give that, but obviously he's had his time and wise experience and everything. He even explains how he had adult children already when he learned about how finally taking care of himself, and he's teaching this and how much he still does. And now his adult children have to do their own work and everybody. So basically, as we not like inflict these things, but essentially like, yes, our trauma then goes down to the next generation or they're affected by it. So the sooner we can take care of it, then it helps everybody else around us. But it's just amazing how, like he even says that, and he's still working on his own issues. So that's very, encouraging everybody else, like his authenticity and the teachings. I love it.
It seems like we're always just like a work in progress, and no one really has it. I think people think these certain people always seemingly have it figured out, whoever they might think is a role model, but it's not like, and I find myself always learning makes me mad, always learning the same lessons over and over. I'm like, man, I thought I learned that already. Like, why am I going through the same thing? Maybe I didn't go through enough pain or whatever, but like, that's life, right? Like I think it's also a constant reminder of like, learning some of the same lessons and just having the discipline to understand that you have to address things in order to move forward to whatever, version of yourself you're trying to be.
Yes, very much so. Because I always thought like, oh, I'm going to have this healing now and whatever. Like, it's not at all like, oh, now I'm done. There's like a new layer. But then at the same time, we are growing, which is what I love, this like new version of ourselves. And then maybe have a new goal or learning more about our purpose or what's our true calling. And that's why it's awesome how we can switch or make shifts, or we start something, but maybe we adjust it. I love it how my business coach uses this like launch and adjust terminology. Big shout out to Gary Barnes. But yeah, I was always afraid to like, oh, and what if this and what if that, and then let's start it. Or even with my business, when I first like, put it out there, oh, I'm doing this wedding planning now. How awesome. By the way, that's another significant step in my or during my healing journey, that I thought that because I was a widow now, I couldn't plan weddings. Like we have these limiting beliefs, like event planning, specifically wedding planning, has always been my passion. So that's what I was kind of gearing up for at the Broadmoor. And I really wanted to do that. But then my husband died. And I'm like, okay, so now, that's not the case anymore. Obviously had other things to worry about. But then as I was starting my healing process, and then this person asked me like, Audrey, and what about weddings? That was our very first conversation after I went to one of his events. And I'm like, what do you mean weddings? Like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm a widow. And he's like, why is that? So he made me think about that. And I had that limitation in my mind that just doesn't match somehow. So shortly after that, I started making plans. And then, I launched Luxe Love, which is about celebrations and weddings. And yes, you can still love and celebrate after loss, which is like the beauty of all of it. And then it's just when you want to change things, you just shift it, you launch it, what's the next thing? And so I always want to have such a plan. I'm a planner, right? But I want to have a plan with the next 20 steps given, but that's not how it works. So I'm coming to terms with that.
Yeah. Especially with weddings, right? So
yeah.
Yeah. You have a something written on your website, Andrew and I were looking up before you got here, and it says quality over quantity and memorable over average.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, I always like to say that I had amazing professionals who I have worked with who helped me with I can't take credit for the whole brand and my logo and things, but they just really represent me so well in the things that what we say and what we do. But yeah, quality over quantity, that's one of my favorite statements, because let's do one event first, but that my focus is on every single detail, which comes from, how I was trained. And then at the Broadmoor specifically, when I came here, and it's every single detail and everything needs to be double checked, triple checked. It's all about, did you pay attention to the little things or making sure that everything is laid out in a way that, was meant to be, or how the client would like it. And so rather than rushing around with 5 things at once, focus on just one thing and do it with the best of your knowledge, the best way you can, other than, just doing a lot at the time. I like to say that with the Angel Gala too, or when people ask me how do you start an event like that? I get that question often, and I'm like, wow, that was, over the course of 10 years. So we didn't have 600 people at once. I like it when something grows slowly and you can kind of address things. So that's also where the quality over quantity comes from. I like to be very boutique. And then when I have a client and I don't have 2 weddings set on the same day or even around the same time, sometimes I like to really give it my attention and focus like that. And yeah, memorable. And that's about we are creating memories for the clients. I like to say experiences too, because even a wedding or when you go to one of these galas we're talking about, right? It's an experience from the first time you come into that space. Everything is kind of put together based on what you're going to experience. And then, but in order to do that, you have to be present. And I used to be the one who wasn't present, always just rush. So I very much more think behind all those words now.
Wow. I did this in my last few years doing my festival. And I'm curious to see if you've done this part of your healing journey, but I would recently, the last 2 years of my festival, would just stop and just we had an opening, everybody kind of crowd, it opened up the gates would open up at 9 and it was an outdoor event. And you could see all these people kind of coming in. And that's the moment, right? It's go time.
Yep.
And I never really cared. I was just all right, Edgar over there, get the video of them coming in. You guys go come over here and make sure you're in this place. But the last 2 years, I made it a big thing to be I want to just watch and listen and hear and just experience it.
Exactly.
And it was emotional for me because I was just holy cow, this was an idea in my head. And now all these people are experiencing with me. And
what you were saying, 100%.
Yeah, Rocky Ross
I
said
love
something
it.
similar actually too. He's an event DJ guy, and he said before like each show he'd stand at the corner and just observe the whole area.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one important thing with my clients, like what I address it, and thank you for this for weddings. Sometimes the couple is so much trying to, make up to what the family's expectations are, or how everybody else, or taking care of everybody and what the guest is gonna do. And I was like, what about you too? Like, I'm a huge advocate for that quiet moment for the couple, whether it's like after the ceremony and then they go away. And I'm not saying that people don't do this at weddings, but just advising the couple on that specifically, or making that possibility for them to go into the all setup space first, because mostly the guests are already in there and, they announce the couple and they come in and they're already in this big happening, but they might not have that moment to take it all in. So I like to do this like this room reveal type of thing where they can go in and yes, it's busy, but let's somehow make this moment. And I love that, so they can reflect for a second, because all of these events are like this whirlwind. We get ready for it for like a year, 6 months, and then we're in there and oh my gosh, and yes, and this, and have you actually been there? And now I do this too at the gala. Like, yes, I know things are going with 1,000 miles an hour, but just like, wow, like look around in the room and all these people. And so that's my one wish for this upcoming event too. Yes, I'm so nervous and oh my God, like what's going to happen, everything, but I want to be present. That's what I'm kind of praying for, that like, can I just be present to take just a tiny bit of it in? Because then it's going to be all this reflection after, but just to be there instead of just nervous and go through the tasks and the happening.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's so beautiful that, this is a really special time for us to meet you. This is like such a great timing for us, the 10th anniversary, you're going to be the keynote, your story. Thank you so much for being vulnerable with us. I feel like we can go on for hours and hours and hours because this has just been such a insightful and vulnerable experience with you. So thank you again for sharing. And one thing I can tell you as a son of a single mom is like, it'll come back to everything that you've sacrificed and all those things in its own little way. I tell my mom all the time, but like in its own little way,
thank you.
Your daughter will probably be like, Mom, like you've done so much for me. And that is, I feel like that will make it worth it for you if it hasn't already. Of course, seeing her out there.
She's actually been already. She's the one who always prompted me, Mom, you didn't, launch your business, or you didn't, because I was always like worried about things. And she would always be that pushing force behind. And she's like, yeah, like my huge cheerleader. And yeah. And she's the one who told me, when you get the opportunity, you better go for it, because if you're not going to go for it, it's just because you're worried about what's going to happen to you. And she actually put that out there at one of these business events where I was attending, but she was with me. She went out there impromptu, kind of put this message out there, and then said in front of everybody that this message was for my mom. And I was just like, this was a few years ago. So that's always in the back of my mind now.
Dang, advice from a 14-year-old, huh? It's so
she was
like 10 or
11
huh?
at the time.
Wow.
And I'm just like, whoa, what is this? She's like wise beyond her years. But yeah, so that's one of the moving forces behind everything I do now. And yes, I got this opportunity now to share at the gala, and I will do it. And yes, I'm afraid of what's going to happen, but and then she says, oh, you're just going to have the time of your life.
She already knows.
So get your tickets next year.
Yeah.
Because this one might be sold out.
I know, right? No, we're really looking at selling out at the gala. There are still a handful of tickets left. So please go and check that out.
Absolutely. And there's always next year too. So
I hope so, yes.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great segue. So that's your camera right there. Where can we find you, Audrey? And anything else you want to share, of course.
Thank you so much for my boutique wedding and special events planning business. It's luxeandlove.events. That's the same on social media. That's luxeandlove.events, luxeandlove.events. And for my involvement with Angels of America's Fallen, or for the Voices program, their website is aoafallen.org. And also from there, you can look up the Angel Gala upcoming event on April 26th at Hotel Polaris. If you can't come to the event, you can also check out the silent auction, check them out on social media, and anybody can participate in the auction, even if you're not at the venue. Thank you so much.
All right. So this has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.